Hello and welcome to It's All Kicking Off, another football roundtable discussion podcast with myself, Adam Wilbourn, Adam Clery, and Benjamin Richardson here to discuss another burning football issue. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to What Culture Football, any of that iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from for daily football podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's the updates there.
But gents, we are gathered here today to discuss VAR. It had its first weekend in the Premier League, of course, this past weekend. And what do we all make of it?
Right. So, yeah, VAR is new in the Premier League. It's not new. We've had it for a number of years. Some leagues across Europe have had it for probably feels like forever now to them. It's quite normal, but right. I've always said we get the punditry in this country that we deserve. Like, we might watch Match of the Day and go, I can't believe that Martin Keown is like looking at his own face in the back of a spoon and going, well, every 5 minutes. But like, genuinely, the punditry we get kind of reflects the broad level of like football fan in this country. They don't really want.
Do you think we deserve Robbie Savage?
No, I think we deserve Robbie Savage, but I think in this country we get the punditry.
Do you think anybody deserves Robbie Savage?
I think a country that puts Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain for years upon years upon years does deserve to have to watch Robbie Savage on Score Sunday. They do deserve to have to watch his completely fake arguments with Chris Sutton in an attempt to like rile up a bit of interest. But like, the thing about VAR is it comes with it a complexity to footballing discussion, and it comes with it like a bottom line to things. All of a sudden, you can't just debate whether or not they meant it or whether or not it's ridiculous. Like, everything now is black and white because you've got VAR. The big decisions either are or they aren't. Ref sees them in real time. Another nerd sees them in like super slow motion. His 3 nerd helpers see them from other angles in super slow motion. You can't really get stuff wrong, and for all the complaints about it, hasn't really been a major incorrect decision using VAR yet. Like, certainly not. It wasn't one in the World Cup when they did it. Not a massive one. It's not been on the Premier League yet. And I just think, broadly speaking, it's for cops and grasses, and I don't like it.
Well, I think I agree. No, you said at the top of the show it's a burning issue. I think the embers of it have long since been extinguished. We've been talking about VAR for what seems like an eternity. And the reason why we talk about VAR is because we can no longer talk about decisions because, as you said, they are completely black and white. So instead we have to have a meta-analysis of, is it a good thing for the game? Is it a bad thing for the game? I personally think the constant pursuit of perfection is a bad thing. I think it takes away... I agree with Nuno Espirito Santos and a whole host of people within football and without football at it. Ruins what we love about the game, the spontaneity and the joy and the sense of pure emotion.
I often think now, especially if you're a Man City fan, for example, you've already been burnt. If your sport club has been in the Champions League or you've been on the receiving end of a VAR turnaround, I think genuinely Man City fans now, because of that Sterling one in the Champions League, will probably celebrate every big goal. I mean, you know, your Man City, only the first goal is really the big. Once you're up to 3, 4, 5, 6 against everybody, you probably stop caring. But the 10 goals, the ones that make it 1-0 or the equalisers, all these really big emotional moments, you probably celebrate with just this little thing in the back of your mind going, just quickly looking at the screens. I've got a terrible habit, which I picked up from having my fingers burnt, is whenever I go at the match, right, no matter how big the goal is, my brain instinctively makes me look at the linesman. Every time there's a goal, I always straight away look at the linesman as I'm celebrating. Look at the linesman, look at the ref, and if like their body language is fine, then I'll sort of let myself go a bit. But when it's a number of seconds, you're like,
I kind of have the opposite. I still get lost in the celebration, but whenever my teams concede, I just didn't remember when Croatia scored against England.
And you're like, what?
I thought maybe
VAR?
there's some random hope that we can get some respite from this goal.
So Adam, you're a Newcastle fan. So you
sins.
maybe understand. I was speaking to one of our esteemed colleagues, Simon Gallagher, the other day, and he was telling me how even when Newcastle beaten Sunderland 5-1 in the pre-VAR days, he couldn't relax. He was convinced there was something wrong and it was going to go backwards. Now, VAR conditions fans to feel like that all the time, even in the moments of joy. So, and already we're seeing a subdued reaction.
Can't think of a worse prediction than to say it's going to turn all of us into Psy.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely, as a damning indictment of like the enjoyment of the game goes, nothing has ever sent a chill down my spine quite like those words. You're absolutely right, though. Like, we're all going to be conditioned to be like, right, yes, goal.
But is it?
Is it? Oh, hey, I guess that must have been a goal, we'll all say like 5 minutes later. It's just I know we were all told that when it comes in, don't get me wrong, I think the job they're doing, I don't want to say the officials here, I think, bear in mind, most things are checked before the celebrations have even finished. The job they're doing has been excellent, I think. You've got the little list there of things that were VAR reviewed and how many of them were overturned. I think by and large, for all the moaning that gets done about it, I think it has made decisions better.
There's no question that the system works, and for the most part, things are now we are getting the correct decision in pretty much every single scenario. It's just a question of whether we really need it.
The fundamental problem with this is that there are so many rules in football compared to other sports. I don't think people who don't watch a lot of other sports really appreciate the amount of rules in football compared to other similar sports are huge, and so many of them over the years have become, in the interest of the game, about interpretation. A lot of them involve intent or the objective. The handball thing, for example. The referee has to consider what they were trying to do in the moment, what they meant to do with it. A lot of red cards are about whether or not there was intent there, whether or not it was just, you kind of got to imply an unquantifiable decision into these rules, which are supposed to be black and white.
And people constantly compare it to tennis and the Hawkeye system, but those...
Well, goal line technology is applicable to the Hawkeye system because the ball's either in or it's out. It doesn't matter whether it's a millimetre. You should be checking that.
That's the only way that video officials... That's the extent of video officials in tennis. There are no marginal calls. It's either in or out. There's no did he mean it to hit it?
Yeah, you don't get thingied. What do you call it when you serve? You don't get
fault.
A false. You don't fault the serve because one of the officials have gone, well, the intent was clearly to miss the net. Was it though? Because he does quite hit it quite loose. That kind of player, he does hit it very low to the net.
You do have a let when they do the funny buzzer, but that's. Again, that's embedded within the rules of tennis.
But the problem is there's so many rules that rely on, as you say, this intent thing. That it's not that VAR is bad. It's that I think that by trying to apply these black and white, yes or no, definitive rulings to these rules, you're sort of exposing a wider problem in the rules of football. Because at no stage, really, in the rules of any game, should we have started talking about intent or daylight between the attacker and the defender. It should literally only have ever been black and white rules, and you bring these things in to enforce them properly. But we've made so many rules about interpretation that now you just pass the interpretation on to someone who can look at it for a bit longer. It's weird.
See, the thing you mentioned about interpretation is really important here because for a long, long time now we've got used to decisions being different in different situations depending on the referee's particular view of that situation. And they haven't always been adhering directly to the laws of the game. But what VAR has actually done is brought into focus some of the actual problems with those laws of the game, particularly with the handball law, which has been, I think, IFAB changed it this summer. So now they use the term it has to be judged whether a player's not unnaturally made themselves bigger. Well, how on earth do you interpret that?
Unless they literally show us a diagram of what the natural body position is, and if your rule would be outside the natural body position.
If you're doing a YMCA or something, that's unnatural, but you could also be doing that involuntarily.
The problem is as well, again, the natural law you go down with this is you make the rule black and white. So but
the rules aren't, whereas VAR is designed to be applied to clear and obvious decisions, and only for situations as well, which maybe a lot of people don't necessarily realise. It's for penalties, whether one's given or not, goal, offside, and straight red cards.
Mistaken identity.
Thing is, though, I'd say the only way you then fix that, if you're going down this route of VAR, is you have to make sure everything is then black and white, and so the decisions are much easier.
What I think that means is that the laws need to be simplified. Which I think will take something away from the game in the long run.
That's the problem, though, is if you simplify, let's say, for example, for the handball thing, they go, right, we're going to clarify a natural position. If your body is, let's say, top of my head, let's say if your hands are above waist height, they are deemed to be in a natural position. If they're below waist height, they're not in a natural position. All of a sudden, every time a defender's trying to block across, he's going to do that stance the goalkeeper does, and if it hits his arm, he knows he gets away with it. So all of a sudden, everybody can handball in the area because they know precisely what the rules are, which is why the intent thing was so important. If you've got your hand up because you're going for a throw-in, or you're going for a try to head the ball and hits it, fair enough, that's a mistake. But if the cross is coming in, you just jump like that and accidentally catch it.
It's not an unnatural jumping position.
And this is one of the ways in which VAR could indirectly alter the fundamental way the game's played, in much the same way that the offside rule did. Sorry, not the back pass rule.
I saw a few people saying, why don't we just get rid of the offside rule now? It's do you realise why that was brought in? You would have teams would play 3 centre forwards who were all 7 foot, and they would stand in the 6-yard box.
I was going to say, have you ever played 5-a-side?
Exactly. Stop goal hanging.
For some old football games that used to allow you to turn offsides off, And my lord, the way it changes again.
If they turn offsides off, I think I can become a professional football player because I'm a professional goal hanger when it comes to five-a-side.
You need to be tall and physical, and that's it.
No, I'm not physical. Okay. There's a lot of protestations about VAR. We saw Danny Murphy over this weekend banging on about it on TalkSport. We've seen all different kinds of pundits coming out and either praising it or complaining about it. I think some complaints are not very justified. People who say it slows the game down, it doesn't make any sense.
I wouldn't go so far as that. I mean, I've yet to be in a stadium when a VAR decision has happened, which I would caveat this for, because obviously when you're there, it's very different.
Yeah.
You watch it on television, they start giving you replays, there's bits of insight to listen to. Your perception at times is probably not quite what it would be for the audience in the stadium. So I'm yet to be in a stadium for when this happens. However,
I think your perception of time in the stadium is warped anyway. There's anyone who's waiting for 2 minutes of stoppage time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you're waiting for a decision, it probably does feel like, again, when that Sterling goal went in against Tottenham and then the VAR review ran around, that probably seemed like a million years. But it's just, I don't think it slows. From watching it on television, I don't think it disrupts the game too much. And in some situations, as we saw in both the Women's World Cup and the Men's World Cup the year before, genuinely, if it's a tight call and you've seen the replays and you're like, geez, I can't even figure this one out. The ref wants to go stand on the touchline and look at a screen for 2 or 3 minutes. Happy to let them do it. You'd rather these decisions were right than we just sort of guess
that. Those were
that.
some of the most dramatic moments in the World Cup.
Yeah,
but I think it'd become tiresome.
The World Cup, I have to say, really was great for VAR.
Yeah,
it genuinely added to a lot of the excitement and the drama.
I thought all England fans agreed we liked VAR the moment it knocked Germany out of the World Cup.
Yes.
But over this weekend, we had Wolves being denied that winner against Leicester due to I think it was Bolly handball. Yep. We had the Jesus goal ruled out, which is due to, I think, an armpit being offside. And, of course,
the very fractional scapula. Yeah.
And Aguero's retaken penalty. But all in all, it didn't really interfere in matches.
They were all the correct decisions, though, weren't they?
All of them were correct decisions.
I know a lot of people moaned about the handball because they think the rule's ridiculous now. If it comes off the arm in any way whatsoever, you can't gain advantage from it. That's kind of fair enough, but people weren't arguing with the VAR there. They were arguing with the change to the handball rule, whereas the penalty was correctly given as a retake because it was Rice who cleared the ball, and the offside was, I mean, I know it's that, but that's offside. Like, then if it cost the team and it was offside, you rightly complain.
If you score a goal by millimetre or you have a goal prevented by millimetre, no one would complain about that. I would say, fair enough, it's either in or it's out. So why shouldn't it apply to offside, I guess, is the question. Now, I haven't had the privilege of being in a stadium with VAR either, because I support Middlesbrough. And much to my chagrin, VAR has not yet come to the Championship. Middlesbrough denied 2 goals should have had at the weekend.
No way.
Yeah. But overall in the Premier League...
Did you win?
No, I've lost 1-0. Obviously.
Oh, well, that's a sickener, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But there was...
VAR to bear.
In the Premier League, there was 38 incidents that were reviewed with VAR, and we were only discussing 3 of them because they were overturned and they took more than 30 seconds. So you have to say, overall, in proportion, it's been a really efficient system, a really effective system. So no, I don't agree it's going to slow the game down at all. Now, it's been in operation in the Bundesliga and Serie A for the past 2 years. In Italy, in the first season, there were a lot of complaints that it was quite slow, but that's back then they were operating the system where the referee had to go up the sidelines and view the little thing and then run back on.
Do you have no communication with anybody else?
Well, he had some communication, but...
Enough to tell him to look at it, basically,
yeah,
not to give him any information.
In Germany, they're operating a different system where I think they ended up in a situation where they found out the guy in the studio was a supporter of one of the clubs. And they also had... It's had teething problems, let's say.
Everything will, won't it?
Yeah, in Germany there was a fantastic situation. It was Mainz, and I forget who we were playing, but...
let's say Hoffenheim. It's always Hoffenheim.
Yeah, it could have been Hoffenheim. But after the whistle had blown, the full-time whistle, the referee called them back on the pitch because of a handball, even though the sprinkles had already started going on. Mainz had to take a penalty, and this was described as absurd, but as it would be. But overall... the vast majority of decisions in Germany were right, and there were no incidents, and it's become better. In Italy, they've tried to speed up the system. There's been complaints there as well. There was a situation when Torino scored a goal, and it was against Udinese. It was disallowed for no reason, and there was no VAR check. So now they're asking for more VAR checks. So it's actually become part of a culture where we want VAR. We're used to it.
I've heard VAR chants now. Yeah.
Now, by the way, can I just say, if that is a booking, players doing that should be a booking as well, 100%. In my opinion. That's already doing my head in. Mostly for how bad they are at depicting a square in midair. VAR. What's this? this rainbow that's going to fix the problem.
I remember there was a player in the FA Cup last year asking for VAR. Even though
There's no VAR, I remember that. That was really
good. I think
good.
it might have been Cesc Fabregas.
Yes. Do you think, so you mentioned there that they've called for it more. Before we get into potentially removing elements of VAR, do you think it could be used in other areas? Or do you think the parameters that they've set now are the widest that they're ever going to be?
I would like to see it used for football club ownership.
Yes.
You can review these decisions after the fact and look at a couple of different angles and decide that in actual fact this person should not own a football club.
I'd like it to be used retrospectively for when Middlesbrough were deducted 3 points in 1997.
Yeah.
To confirm that they were virally infected and could not play that fixture against Blackburn Rovers. I think it should be used for fewer. I don't think it should be used for offsides. Personally, I don't, because I think it's going to make the role of linesman completely redundant. Because one thing I'm worried about now is that I don't know what you're supposed to do when the linesman flags. Because I don't think
they do at the minute.
No, because
you don't stop, do you?
I think the benefit is for the attacking team is to keep playing, score a goal, and then see if it's given. If you stop, you might have denied yourself a really good opportunity.
Likewise, if you're a defender as well, like you see the flag, you stop, you've got no idea whether that's going to be given or not. And of course, if you've stopped and the goal's gone in, you point at the linesman.
In which case, it becomes an illegitimate.
I will say though, this has been discussed. I can't remember who it was, but there was two pundits who said they were talking about, it's ridiculous. If you see the linesman's flag up, you just ignore it. You're supposed to play through. And they were like, well, I'll put it this way, right? If I was still a player and the linesman I'm defending, right? And the linesman puts his flag up, and I go, he's offside, so I stop. And they score a goal, right? It's not me that's going to need to relearn the rule. It's not the linesman that's going to have to do it better. My manager will have me in on that Monday, and he will knock me around senseless until I promise to always play to the whistle.
But I remember a few years ago, Arsenal playing against Barcelona at Nou Camp. Robin van Persie got sent off. I think it was a second yellow.
Second yellow for pretending he couldn't hear. Well, he said he couldn't hear
for taking a shot when he was offside. So what are they supposed to do?
I was going to ask about this because I can't remember. I thought this was the pundit you were going to reference here. There was some pundits arguing, and they really got carried away with it in terms of, okay, what if a player is played through, he's actually offside, but they don't give it, they let play go on, and then like another defender comes in and breaks his ankle because he's the last man or whatever. And then, was that still a red card? Or I think that's getting a little bit away with it, getting a little bit carried away. But I think there are question marks.
If they brought up that scenario, that's very easy to fix. You still send the player off for violent conduct. That doesn't matter whether the ball's in play or not, but they don't get a free kick for it. Like that's genuinely, when again, as I say, we get the punditry reserve in this country, and you've already mentioned TalkSport. There's going to be a lot of pundits pretending they don't understand parts of this in order to get angry. So you'll ring up a premium rate phone number and tell them they're wrong. We are going to get an awful lot of that. There's going to be people arguing about it till the cows come home. When, as you say, well, we all know what the rule would be there. You'd send them off for violent conduct, and they would get a free kick for the offside.
It's the whole. What if you score another one I heard? I think was what if you score a goal, which is subsequently ruled to be not a goal, but you take your shirt off in the celebration and get booked, and maybe that's a second yellow. Honestly, it's ridiculous.
You've took your shirt off for a situation that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
It's a difficult one.
Well, technically, you only get booked if you take your shirt off while celebrating a goal. So if the goal isn't given, you don't get booked.
It's
very, very easy to clear that one up.
I think just have a rule that you don't take your shirt off at any point during the match or any item of clothing.
It's Schrodinger's shirt. It's both on and off at the same time.
On the subject of punditry, I think you're right for the most part, but it does seem like some of the pundits at the embedded institutes of BBC and BT Sport, they've all been to Stockley Park for the media indoctrination. So some of them are suddenly now very much in favour of the... Alan Shearer is presenting videos about it.
I watched, before we came in here, I watched Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville doing their report on it for Sky. And the fascinating thing I found out about that, along with Jamie Carragher hitting the red button to speak to the referee like it was a fruit machine, was... There was a decision, I think it was a high foot, that they used to sort of give you an example for it. And Carragher and Neville completely disagreed on whether or not it should be... It was a yellow card decision, I think, on the field. And they completely disagreed whether or not it should be upgraded to a red card or just left as it is. And that, again, brings in the subjective nature of it all.
Like I said at the top of this, the problem is not with VAR, the problem is with the rules in football. Before this technology came in, so many changes have been made for the good of the game in order to make the games flow, to make them safer. So many rules have been changed without the benefit of this technology. And as we say, they always go down to intent, because you don't want players to be able to handle the ball in the box, but at the same time, you don't want players to be punished for what is a genuine mistake. So they bring in this idea of intent. You don't want players to not feel that they can make a tackle to honestly try and win the ball, but you don't want people to get injured at the same time. So you bring in intent. And the problem we've had is for years and years and years, and it's going to stay the same with VAR, right? The argument has always gone, whenever refereeing is consistent, right, people want it to be common sense. So whenever it's consistent, people want it to be, I lost the word. You want consistent refereeing, or you want common sense refereeing. And whenever a referee displays common sense, well, no, it's inconsistent. Inconsistent. You've been inconsistent with the decision. We want consistent refereeing. We don't want common sense refereeing. And then whenever a consistent decision is applied, which annoys people, they go, common sense. We need common sense refereeing.
You can't win.
Example I always give is high tense game, right? The derby or something like that. Kicks off. In the first couple of seconds, somebody gets a little bit carried away, steams in to try and win the ball, takes a player out. Now, to start the game, everybody calm down. It's probably a yellow card offence, but to start the match, everyone's a bit on edge. You don't want to start doing this, so you don't book the player. Common sense refereeing. Half an hour later, the exact same tackle comes in from the other side, and you book them. Now, do you want consistent refereeing, so they both get a yellow card when you probably shouldn't really book the first one because you've got a whole game to manage? Or do you want consistent refereeing, where everybody gets booked for the exact same kind of challenge? And these are the kind of problems we've always had with the rules in football. It's why we hate referees, because they're the ones who have to make these decisions. And now VAR is going to come in and it's just going to highlight these rules that now don't need to be common sense because they can always be consistent.
So the reaction to VAR now being in the Premier League, Danny Murphy was arguably calling for it to be scrapped when it comes to...
Can I call for Danny Murphy to be scrapped?
You can, absolutely.
There we go.
When people are talking about offside decisions being a millimetre or an inch, and as we've sort of gone into there, but there's also discussion of it being used in moderation, almost being used like an appeal or a challenge system where you get sort of 3 challenges per game. Would that make things better? Or
Fast,
I think Sky
Fast.
would absolutely lick their lips over that concept.
Oh, God. But
mean,
that would slow the game down.
Yeah, the element
another
of
thing I've
drama
heard as well
would
is
be-
people potentially advertising during the VAR checks, which I
Yeah.
really don't want to see. This isn't American football. But yeah, do you think that could be the
No,
case?
I think we either have it properly or we don't have it at all. It doesn't need to be a gimmick.
Don't get me wrong, for banter purposes entirely, I'm in favour of that. But if you think, bear in mind that everybody in the VAR nerd grass room is constantly reviewing things, only brings them up when they're relevant. You add, let's say a decision happens and it's
grassroots. Sorry.
a decision comes out, it's really, and then they've got we've only got one challenge left, and they get together and have a little, was it worth? I don't know. Did you see? Oh, I think he did have a high foot. We might get him sent off and we challenge. Oh, I don't know. He looked like he might have won the ball. And he said, ref, yes, we would actually like to go to VAR. VAR now, please, ref. We'd like to go to
They
that.
have to spell out VAR on the bench.
Oh, ref, would like to go to that, and then that takes a couple of minutes to get back. The decision gets made, and et cetera, and then it's just no.
I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you because I sense that if my team conceded a goal and we had some challenges remaining, you just sort of do it on the off chance. And would you have to specify? Would you say we're appealing because we believe this player's offside, or actually we think this player's got fouled in the build-up?
Yeah.
Like it's random.
I think I'd have the assistant managers have to race to the referee first.
And the thing
Like
we've got to remember
Wally
is,
Downs and
Apologies to Sammy Lee, who'll
yeah.
never get employed again.
if some huge footballing injustice was done, right, and it could have been overturned by VAR, but a team just didn't challenge it, would all the discussion around this not just be, well, there should be, if they can see there's a mistake, they shouldn't be waiting for these challenges, they should be helping the referee to do his job.
Yeah, it's a question of why VAR was introduced in the first place. And
That's exactly it, yeah.
And it wasn't to heighten the drama of the Premier League or football. It was because of the money involved is so high. The referees are under too much pressure and can no longer afford to make mistakes. It's to make their jobs easier.
I would say so far it has.
It definitely has. I don't know whether we need it though.
A final question for you then, because this is what everyone keeps saying. Does it ruin the beautiful game?
It changes it. I don't know if it ruins it. It's just changing the context of it, and it's something we'll have to get used to.
I was going to say, will it be something we just get used to, and in 5 years' time we'll be wondering how we ever got along without it?
People probably said the same thing about the offside law, about the back pass law, about substitutes, about goal line technology. So I think in 5 years' time we'll finally won't be talking about it as much. It's certainly ruining the enjoyment of football because it's all we ever hear about at this point in time. But eventually it'll just become normalised.
I think once the rules catch up with it as well, because now we've got these right down the middle, microscopically correct decisions that are being applied to, as we say, a rule book that's been developed with intent and interpretation in mind. I think once the rules start to catch up with the technology, which again invites its own problems, because what do you do if you've got rules that are like dependent on the technology? What do you then do with all the leagues that don't have the technology? That's going to be a problem in of itself. But I think once the rules start to adapt to the fact that these decisions can be black and white a lot more than they used to be, we don't have to rely on interpretation as much.
That's a really pertinent and good point there. That the grassroots football is going to become a different game to top level football, like even more so than it
Dad's
already
bringing
is.
5 video cameras to the game.
Well, you say that ever since VAR was introduced, what do we do if there's a tight shot in pool where we're not sure if someone's going to foul?
Yep.
You get the slow-mo camera over the top of the ball, don't you, so we can rewind it and see what was hit first. Even we've introduced VAR. So, I mean, look, we can do it at pool games at What Culture Towers. I don't get why, Billy Big Bollocks down on Sunday League on a Sunday can't...
Very quickly, do you think it will be extended to more of the English league? Because you mentioned it being involved in the Championship. I'm a National League team supporter.
Yeah,
I don't sense that we'll get it anytime soon.
I'll put it this way, right?
Do you have goal line technology in the National League?
I don't think so.
Because that is available in the Championship.
I don't think we got a goal line.
It's like all forms of technology when they used electronic scoreboards.
Yeah.
It was only in the top level.
Now,
I think North Shields have got an electronic
It'll
scoreboard.
trickle down.
It wasn't until about 2008 that the Riverside Stadium had a scoreboard. So it was just a constant mystery. You didn't know whether you're winning, losing, drawing. It was.
Yeah, I find it fascinating out of all this that with the VAR thing, obviously they show
the St James Park didn't have a scoreboard until about 3 years ago.
They show up on the screen and they say when a review's happening, and I'm not sure if they show the footage or what the referee's looking at. But all I know is the only 2 grounds that don't do that are Anfield and Old Trafford because they don't have a giant screen there, which is insane.
I don't think. Well, it helps to keep the fans informed of what's going on, but I don't if necessarily I like them showing the thing. Because as we said, we had all these decisions, at least 35 of them that passed without incident, without anybody really knowing about it, and that we haven't been discussing ad nauseam all weekend.
Well, I'm sure this is a debate that will roll on and on, and we'll be back in here after next weekend debating yet another controversial VAR decision. But let us know your thoughts in the comment section below or on Twitter at WhatCultureFC. In fact, you can follow all 3 of us. You can follow Adam Clery at
Adam Clery, CLERVARY.
You can follow Benjamin Richardson at
BAR3Bud.
You can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. I said follow us all at WhatCultureFC, and make sure you subscribe and like and share and all that sort of thing. My thanks to Adam and to Benjamin. Thank you for watching, and we will see you soon.